Welcome to the All Access Entertainment Podcast. I am your host, Joseph Bruen, and this is part 2 with none other than Vince Russo. Welcome back to the show, Vince.
What is going on, Joe? Nice to be here with you again, my friend.
Pleasure to have you, and got a lot to talk about today, but let's kick it off with JCW. Obviously, that is your newest venture. You are there. You are in full force. You're back in the wrestling business. You know, you're the man writing the show. You're on the show as well. We just had Hollywood Haley J on the show yesterday. She's the new JCW Women's Champion, of course. Why don't you tell us about your experience there so far and how that came about?
Yeah, I mean, my experience has really been great. I mean, it really has been. This is tailor made for me. I mean, Joe, people are going to believe what they want to believe. I had no intention whatsoever of getting back in the wrestling business. I mean, what it really is, Joe, is honestly, when I was writing for the WWE, it was me and Ed Ferrara, period. We would write a show. We would present it to Vince. We would walk Vince through the show, and 99% of the time, that was the show that we did. So it was real simple. We wrote it. We brought it to Vince. We walked through Vince. If Vince wanted to tweak it here and there, we got all Vince's notes. We went back. We added it all. Done. The structure of their creative today blows my mind. We've seen it on Unreal. You've got creative meetings in a boardroom with people wearing suit and ties and whiteboards. The reality of me being able to function in that type of environment is zero. Absolutely zero. I mean, if I were to go there, if I was to make it through to lunch, I would be lucky. No way, no how would Vince Russo fit in that environment. We all know with Tony Khan, Tony wants to write his show, and that's fine, man. It's his money. It's his promotion right away. The problem with Tony and Triple H is they're writing shows and producing shows that they like. It's not about what you like. It's what about the masses like. What are going to get the most people possible watching? I never wrote a show for Vince Russo. I wrote a show for the mass audience. And the numbers tell you what they're watching and what they're tuning out to. They tell you that. So all you have to do is follow those numbers. All you got to do is make those adjustments, give them more of what they want, and take away what they're not watching. And the numbers are going to grow. It's really that simple. So I had zero intention. You know, bro, listen, if Joe, thank God, knock on wood, if I needed the money, it would have been one thing. I don't need the money. It's so I can make that choice that no, I don't want to get back into that. What happened is, you know, Violent J, first of all, you know, I worked with those guys at WCW and WWE. So I knew them. I knew Violent J and I knew Shaggy. We also had a common friend in Sean Oliver. If you know Sean does Kevin's podcast, Kevin Nash, kayfabe commentaries. Yeah. Sean's a writer. Sean's a teacher. I think Sean is a brilliant guy. I've always been a huge fan of Sean Oliver. And Sean also wrote ICP's book. So, you know, Sean's got a very close relationship with Violent J. Yeah. So Sean just called me one day and said, you know, like, what if? And, you know, Joe, my experiences have always been this, because I've gotten the call to write for many, many, many companies. But, Joe, what happens is at the end of the day, the promoters who call me, they want to write the show because it's their show. And I always wind up saying, then what did you call me for? Okay, like
Right.
if you want to write your own show, write your own show. You don't need me. That I can't tell you how many times that happened. And I was afraid of the same thing here because, bro, listen, Lunacy and Violent J, bro, they started this like 1999. So he's been writing his own wrestling show for 26 years. So it was pretty much the same story. Okay, I've been doing it one way for 26 years. I want to bring it to the next level. Yeah. And that's when Sean and, what about let Vince write it? But it was the same thing, Joe. It really comes down to, okay, bro, I watch your show. I know what needs to be done. Are you going to allow me to do it? Because what I mean by that, Joe, to be honest with you, is think about it. And I get it. And I understand it. Violent J's been writing that show for 26 years. It's not going to be easy for him to let it go. Sure. It's just not. It's God, bro. It's like giving a baby up for adoption. And I get it. And I have to tell you, like, we've had to work through a lot of things because his writing style is not my writing style. And like Joe really didn't understand, like I tell stories and those stories are going to build week after week after week after week. And then you get a payoff. So as I'm writing these shows for Joe, like, he's seeing week one and he doesn't understand, why this is happening and why that's happening and why we're not getting a payoff right away. And I just said, bro, that's not how I write. You got to let this stuff play out. You've got to trust me that I know what I'm doing. And what's happening, Joe, I think, and it's kind of the same thing that happened to Vince in the WWE. The more and more we're seeing results and the more he starts seeing these things play out. Oh, that's why Vince did that. Oh, that's the more he's seeing that. Now he's getting more used and accustomed to the way I write. So the more the process goes on, the easier it becomes. But I also knew, knowing Jay, this is a guy that doesn't have a political bone in his body, and I hate politics. That's why I got out of the wrestling business, regardless of what people want to say or their agendas or narratives. I left WCW. I left TNA. Never once have I been fired from a job in wrestling. Every time I've left, Joe, it's been because of politics. And that's one thing with a guy like Jay. I'm like, this is the least political guy that I could want to work with. And he's so freaking creative. And that's why I knew, man, if we could, it's going to be a bumpy road. He's not going to be used to what I'm doing. He's going to want to push back a little bit. Bro, there's a huge difference, Joe, between writing indie wrestling and writing a television show. It's night and day. But like I said, man, the more he sees results, the more he sees things play out, it kind of becomes easier and easier and easier for him.
You've got a lot of great characters there. How deep of a roster do you have to play with, roughly?
Oh God, bro, it's deep. It's deep, and it's, see, this is the part of it, Joe, that people don't really understand. I'm trying to watch their budget. There is a dollar sign to every talent. So this isn't the WWE, bro. That's why my greatest experience of writing was the WWE. Because I never had to worry about money. No matter what. I never had to worry about who I wrote on the show. If we wanted to fill up a sports car with cement, I never had to worry about that. Every other stop along the way, bro, money and budget has come into play. So like I could have these wild ideas and these wild images in my mind and no, bro, they can't afford to do that. Like
That's a whole other element.
absolutely, it definitely does. So that's the thing, bro. It's a very, 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 very deep roster, and I wish everybody could be on every show. But like I said, part of indie wrestling is you've got to look at that budget. You have to.
Yeah. And hopefully, with the success, moving forward, the budget will grow. And
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, once, I mean, you get a streaming service and you get things like that, then, even the break even, I mean, that's really the goal. You got to get to the break even point first.
Yeah. And JCW Lunacy, that can be seen every
Thursday night at 7:00 Eastern. There's a new show tomorrow night. And just go to JCW Lunacy and you'll find it on YouTube.
Excellent. And we'll bounce back to JCW in a bit. We've got a lot to cover here today. So, going back to the Attitude Era, let's talk about the Brawl for All. WWF Brawl for All was obviously a concept that, did you create that, or was that already in place?
No, it was, I don't, well, when you talk about create, I didn't create like the nuts and bolts and the rules and all that stuff. It was my idea. It was an idea that I got based on a conversation. I pitched that to Vince and it became a reality.
Okay. So, rumors over the years is that Dr. Death was brought in to basically win the tournament. I didn't know if that was true or not, but let's kind of talk about, what went into the Brawl for All, what the initial vision was for that plan.
Listen, here's how it started. And I don't know, like it started with JBL. I don't know what JBL's recollection is. I will tell you exactly what happened. And because I can remember specifics. And this is where you got to ask yourself the question, why would I involve a third person when the third person can say that never happened? I was there. It was me, Kevin Kelly, and JBL. Okay, 3 of us were there. It wasn't my word against his. 3 of us were there. And JBL happened to say off the cuff, if this shit were real, I would kick everybody's ass. And when he said that, like, I immediately was to myself, really? I mean, bro, you're talking about Bob Holly, Ken Shamrock, Steve Blackman. Bro, you're talking about badasses. So when he said that, I was like, well, that's interesting because quite frankly, I don't think you would. So I brought that conversation to Vince. And bro, knowing Vince eats stuff like that up.
You know how he's going to react to that.
Absolutely. So as soon as I pitched it to Vince, the Brawl for All came a thing. But I will tell you, Joe, the rumor of Dr. Death was brought in, all that is bullshit. This was 100% a shoot. 100%. Nobody was brought in to win it and then be put into an angle with a Stone Cold Steve Austin. And the proof behind that is, who in God's name would have had Bart Gunn as a favorite? Right. Nobody. Bro, Bart Gunn's problem was, bro, the biggest problem with Bart Gunn was, bro, here was a blue chip athlete. And, a guy that looked like $1 million, a guy that could work, couldn't cut a promo. And, bro, that's the problem I still had with him after he won the Brawl for All. Because obviously now we got an angle. Now we could put Bart in something. But the reality of it was he still couldn't cut a promo. So you're going to put him in an angle with Austin and Austin's going to eat him alive. So the fact that this thing was somehow, some way fixed, Bart Gunn would have probably been the last guy on the list to win the Brawl for All. When I was watching those fights, Joe, I swear to you, when he knocked out like Godfather and Brett, bro, their eyes rolled to the back of their heads. I've never seen anybody get hit that hard. So I was watching this shit, and I never in a million years would I have thought it would have been Bart Gunn. Never.
Now, when you see the finished product, as far as, what the brackets are, who's in the tournament, when you put it on paper, in your eyes, who did you think was going to take it? If you had to pick one.
I had a clear-cut winner like in my mind that I thought would take it. I would say, bro, there were probably two different guys for two different reasons. Okay, number one, The Godfather, Charles Wright, because Charles Wright was legit. He was a bouncer, at clubs, at strip clubs in Vegas. He was legit. But on the other side of that coin, you had a Mark Merrow, who was a Gold Gloves champion. Yeah. And all Mark had to do was catch somebody. These guys didn't know how to box. So, if either one of those guys would have won, I would not have been surprised.
And what was the ultimate plan for the Brawl for All? What was the prize for the winner initially? Was it to go against Butterbean essentially at WrestleMania, or was he brought in kind of last minute?
Yeah, it was money. It was money. All those guys were paid, and they had the option. You could do this or not do it. Now, I did not set any of that up. All that stuff was set up between probably Pritchard and Ross, probably making those phone calls. Those guys got a purse. Literally, it was like boxing, and you want to do this, here's what you get paid. You get to the next round, here's what you get paid. So there was money involved. Butterbean was never a part of that until after we had a winner. After we had a winner, we thought, well, shoot, Butterbean was so hot at the time. He was a gimmick. He was perfect for wrestling. Man, this could be a special attraction.
And what was your reaction backstage when you saw Butterbean and how that knockout looked?
Bro, what's so funny? A lot of people don't know this because people want to just talk and they never want to get the facts. Here's what happened when you have a conversation with Bart, he will tell you this. I think his first name was it Mark. I can't remember his first name. Mark Merrow's trainer that trained him for the Golden Gloves. His last name was Rinaldi. I don't remember his first name.
Ray Rinaldi?
Ray, yes, Ray Rinaldi. That he was legitimately Mark's trainer when Mark won the Golden Gloves. So now when Bart wins and we're going to go to Butterbean, Rinaldi trained Bart. But Rinaldi trained Bart how to box. He totally got Bart away from what he did in the Brawl for All. He was trying to teach him, Bart, how to box Butterbean. So Bart went in there with a totally different game plan than he did with the Brawl for All. He was we're just going to throw bombs, man. So he literally tried to box Butterbean, and we see what the results was. That's the reality of the situation. And Bart will be the first one to tell you that's what happened.
Wow. So since leaving the WWE or WWF, when you left in 1999, all these years later, if you had to pick a storyline, and obviously you didn't keep close eye on the product at all times, but when you'd see it here and there, what would you say was your favorite storyline since you've left the company?
Oh, since I left the WWE?
Yeah.
Wow.
Is there anything that stands out that you actually did care for?
Well, I will tell you two things. I thought what they did with Hunter marrying Stephanie, I thought that was pretty cool. And they did that like right away. And bro, the reason why they did that right away was they didn't know where we were going with Test and Stephanie. They had no idea where we were. See, again, bro, there was no committees. It was me and Ed. So like only me and Ed knew where we were going. So all of a sudden me and Ed leave the company and they don't know where to go with that storyline. I thought that was a really, really, really good choice. I'm not going to lie to you, Joe. I swear to you, I swear, man, all the wrestling that I've watched since I left. Now you got to understand a big chunk of it. I did not watch any WWE when I was at TNA. Bro, I've never seen the Rock Hogan match. I never saw CM Punk's run. I never saw Kurt Angle's run. I watched nothing because I was busy working.
Sure.
But man, I would say it's not a storyline or it's not an angle. It was Bray Wyatt. And seeing that freaking character and just knowing like how good this guy was and what was like inside of his head. And, you know, bro, I was lucky enough to get to exchange a couple of DMs with him because I wanted to tell him, bro, I've never seen anything like you. And I would have given anything to work with that dude. But outside of seeing that talent, man, I'm not saying this to bury them in any way, but when you ask me that question, bro, you know, like the whole bloodline thing, I don't think that was as great as everybody thought. It's a simple storyline. You got a family in wrestling. That's what you got. I think people thought that was so great because everything else sucked. Like nothing else was good at the time, and all they had was this bloodline. But what I saw of the bloodline, it's like, okay, bro, we got a family. I didn't really understand, like, what is the story here? We got Samoan family, Samoan roots. I get all that, but it was nothing special for me. So, like, storyline-wise or anything like that, man, nothing really jumps out at me.
Yeah. Now, memories of any personal memories over the years of Howard Finkel?
Oh, God, bro. Bro, he was the first guy I drove with. Me and Howard were driving buddies. And I always remember some very, very specific things about Howard. Number one, he used to love to smoke those cheap Swisher Sweets. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh,
These
yeah.
really cheap, thin cigars that are like 99 cents a pack and taste like bubble gum. Okay, he used to love to smoke those. He actually introduced me to the Dairy Queen Blizzard. I'd never had a Blizzard before. And bro, believe it or not, this is an absolute shoot. Howard Finkel used to drive with his feet. He used to get a big kick out of driving with his feet.
Really?
And Joe, you want to hear something funny? Later on, and for many, many years, the car was Vince and Shane in the front, Ed and Vince Russo in the back. That was the car. And Joe, people were looking at me like how lucky I was to be traveling with Vince. The worst you could possibly imagine. And that's why I swear to God, I remember during those times thinking back when I traveled with Howard. And, you know, just playing with the radio. I can remember Howard singing Hootie and the Blowfish, and me and Howard just bullshitting about 70s wrestling and all that shit. And it was so much fun. And then when you're in the car with a Vince and a Shane going from town to town, bro, it is a horrible, horrible experience.
What was their relationship like just in seeing them together, you know, behind the scenes?
Definite. Vince and Shane.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely not father son, bro. It was, you saw a kid that was constantly trying to get the love and approval of his dad. And it just seemed like no matter what he did, it just wasn't enough. I'll never forget, bro, the first time Shane went on TV and cut that promo on Vince. I worked with Shane on that all day. And bro, that was so moving and so emotional because it was real. Everything Shane said in that promo was real. And he was constantly trying to get the approval of his dad. And man, everything he did just wasn't good enough. It was not. I mean, I've got two sons, Joe. Never in a million years would I ever put them in that kind of situation. And God, bro, it had to be really, really difficult to be Shane McMahon.
Yeah. So 1997, probably close to the time period of the Brawl for All. Brockus was brought to the World Wrestling Federation, a German superstar, did some training with the Hart family in the dungeon. What was the original vision for Brockus, and why did he only last what seemed like maybe a few weeks, couple weeks?
Yeah, there really wasn't a vision for him, bro. He just looked like a freak. I mean, as soon as you say his name, I remember him and what he looked like, and I bet what it really came down to at the end of the day was people like JR, people like Vince, just not thinking he could work, just not thinking he was going to pick it up and get it. And that's probably what eventually did him in. It was nothing creative, that we didn't have anything for the guy or anything, but he was gone before we knew it. And they probably felt either he was hurting people. Man, when you're hurting people in the ring, that's a bad thing. I mean, that's really, really going to hurt your career. So I'm sure it had to do with his just performance in the ring.
A lot of people were saying that he was going to go. A lot of people thought he was going to go all the way with Brawl for All, and he was one of the first ones to get wiped off the map.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. I even forgot he was in it, but yeah. So I'm sure. Joe, here's what people don't understand. Like, all it takes is like one person to get in Vince's ear. I remember, Joe, we were at a Raw, and I'll never forget, we were advertising. It was on the stage, one of those big inflatable Miller Lite chairs, and it had a holder for your beer and the whole 9 yards, right? Sable came out as the model. And I remember being in the house, and I'm like, she had the second biggest pop of the night behind Austin. And I'm like, we need to do something with her. And then Sable started getting super, 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 super over. And it was one top guy getting in Vince's ear. She's taking one of our spots. It was a woman taking one of the guy's spots. She's taking one of our spots, Vince. The boys don't like it, Vince. She's taking one of our spots. The next thing you know, Sable's with the oddities. That's how it happens, man. It's one person. And I say that because Brockus could have hurt the wrong person in the ring. A lot of times that's all it is one person.
What are your memories of one of the employees from the World Wrestling Federation for so long, Bob Wink Collins?
Oh, the absolute bet. What a gimmick. I mean, the guy was Barnum and Bailey himself. I miss that about wrestling, man, because everybody was a gimmick. I mean, literally Bob Collins wore he wore a robe in his office. As a shoot, he had a shirt and a tie and a robe. And the guy was brilliant promoter. I miss stuff like that so much, man. And it was really people like that played such a key part in the success of the WWE.
And what were some of the things that Bob was basically in charge of, within the company?
Well, really, I mean, it was the early years of WrestleMania. I mean, it really was. My first WrestleMania with them was WrestleMania 10. And Bob was the promotions guy. He was the PR guy. He was the one, getting talent hooked up with radio stations and out there promoting. He literally was a Barnum and Bailey. He was an unbelievable promoter.
Any encounters or memories with Ed Cohen?
Oh, God, yeah. Man, he was another one of those guys. It's almost like Vince had the Office was like a roster of superstars. Literally, you talk about Ed Cohen, you talk about Bob Collins. There was Steve Taylor. Steve Taylor, who ran the bill. I mean, he had Howard Finkel. He had people working for him in key positions that were great. Ed Cohen was one of those guys. I spent many hours in Ed Cohen's office, just talking to him. And these were guys that loved the business. They loved the business. They weren't corporate. They loved the business. But man, guys like those guys were the absolute best, man.
So we talked on episode 1 of how you found the concept of the wrestler to become what, to kind of go with who of
Right.
Jim Neidhart. And obviously that was during an era where it was a little rough, 1996. I've actually spoken to Jim Heaney, who played the role of Jimmy Shoulders, and he wrestled in ECW for a short period of time. He would come to the World Wrestling Federation in 96 as Body Donna Cloudy. So he managed the Body Donnas. You had Sonny with the smoking guns. You had Cloudy now, with the Body Donnas. I don't know if you remember that time period.
I think I do. I think I do. Yeah.
So he actually played the What character on a couple different house shows. So,
wow. See, I did not know that. Interesting.
Yeah. He was the one who it went that far where there was a couple matches and it never made it to TV, obviously. But I thought I'd let you know that.
I did not know that. So now people know I ain't lying about that, bro. And I didn't even know about that. That's incredible, man. That's incredible.
And when it comes to who, why was Jim Neidhart put in that position? Was it a punishment? Because that's the rumor that
it had to be, bro. When you see stuff like that, it's a punishment. It's how are they going to take it? I mean that's what it is, and there's no question he did something that pissed off the office or said something he shouldn't have said, and there he is in that character, bro. The amazing thing is they still do that to this day. You could see it. You could, when somebody is clearly getting over and then the push stops or they take a step backwards, you can clearly see they're still doing that today.
How was Kevin Dunn perceived backstage? I know some got along with him, some didn't. What were your experiences with Kevin Dunn?
I got to be honest with you. Like, first of all, I thought Kevin Dunn was great. Again, Ed Cohen, Bob Collins, Kevin Dunn. This is an all-star team. Kevin Dunn's father worked for Vince before Kevin. I was always Kevin Dunn's biggest fan. Always, always, always. Kevin supported me. I supported him. We never crossed lanes. Kevin never tried to get involved in creative at all. He did his TV thing. And bro, I got to be honest, when I was there, I didn't know of anybody that didn't like Kevin. I mean, maybe they didn't, but they didn't say anything because he was in such a powerful position. But you never heard around the office people hating Kevin Dunn. And then it was odd, bro, because then when I left, you hear people talking about Kevin Dunn. Bro, it was never that way when I was working there. And bro, I swear to God, if there was anybody that was right up there in work ethic as Vince, it was Kevin Dunn. I mean, no, the guy sacrificed his life for that company. And I don't have one bad thing to say about that guy.
And you mentioned Steve Taylor. What are some of your personal memories of Steve, working with him over the years?
Yeah, bro. The one thing I'll always remember, and again, because I still get emails about this to this day, was, I still get the emails, you killed Owen Hart. And the one thing about Steve, I remember, another great guy, another MVP of the company. Bro, what happened was, Joe, that pay-per-view in Kansas City was written. It was already done. This is late. This is maybe a Thursday night. I'm late in the office. It's probably 6 o'clock-ish. Nobody else is in the office. Everybody's gone. And I remember I got the show in front of me. I'm dotting the I's. I'm crossing the T's. Steve Taylor calls me. And Steve says to me, Vince, the people that repel Sting are going to be in Kansas City. Is there anything in the show where they might be able to do something to show us what they can do because they want to work with us? Bro, I swear to God, I had the show in front of me because I was working on it. And I went through the show and I see Owen Hart as the Blue Blazer. So I said to Steve, Steve, Owen's going to be the Blazer. If they want to repel Owen, that would be pretty cool for Owen. That would be a pretty cool entrance for Owen. If they want to do that, I said that would be cool. That's how it got written in. It was never written into the show. It was never a part of the show. It got written in because those guys were going to be there. And Steve contacted me seeing if we could figure out something for them to do. And I'll always remember that, because to this day, people dog me about what happened to Owen Hart.
Yeah, it's too bad. I mean, that was just a tragic situation. And obviously we talked about Owen on episode 1. Owen, one of the absolute best in the business,
No doubt.
So Attitude Era, you're the lead man, the head writer. The whole roster had a spot in the Attitude Era. It didn't matter if you were Steve Austin or one of the oddities. Everybody had something. Everybody felt important. You turn on that show, the opening match, all the way to the main event, everybody was a part of something. And if they weren't in a match that week, well, they had an important segment backstage, whatever it may be. Nowadays, I feel like a lot of the guys aren't used. A lot of the guys are sitting backstage. You don't see them on TV at all. Why do you think that is, that you were able to bring to life every single character from top to bottom, and nowadays, you're waiting weeks to see somebody sometimes?
Because that was my job. Because when JR handed a roster over to me, first of all, I knew this. When JR handed a roster over to me, JR was not a guy that was going to hire his friends, that was going to hire people because he was doing favors. JR handled that roster like it would have been the roster of Oklahoma football. He took it so seriously. So when he handed that over to me, I knew every name on this roster deserved the spot. I knew it. Like, if JR is putting you on this roster, you deserve the spot. At that point, it is up to me to do everything I possibly can, everything in my power to aid every single person on that roster in getting over. The more people over, the more money the company was going to make. It's that simple. So it was my responsibility to take that roster from the opening match to the main event and do everything I could do in my power to get those people over.
Let's talk about the Patriot, the late Del Welks. As a fan growing up, I was a big fan of him. Obviously, he was doing some international stuff. I would see him in the magazines. I first discovered him in WCW, just kind of flipping through the channels, and he and Buff Bagwell were Stars and Stripes, the tag team. And that was the first time that I saw him. Became a big fan instantly. All of a sudden, the Hart Foundation are in the ring on Raw 97, and the Patriot shows up, and he's lined up there with Shawn and Sid and Shamrock and getting ready for, a big melee. And kind of take us through the creative process of the Patriots run in the WWF. I thought it was kind of odd that he kind of just showed up, because the WWE audience didn't know who the Patriot was. So there was no buildup of, Patriots coming soon. And I knew who he was, and then when he was there, he had some great stuff going on with Bret Hart. And then all of a sudden he just disappeared. So I was just curious how that worked.
Yeah, that was my early roots of being involved creatively. That was I wasn't. I don't believe at that time I was writing the show, but I was on the fringe. And I was a big fan of the dude. And I thought he was great. I thought he performed great. I thought the people were behind him. But Joe, that's what happens. It's like every time you see something like that, it's freaking money. It's always money and it's contract. Bro, never once. I could tell you this, no matter where I worked throughout my entire career, you never saw a guy one week and not the next week because of creative.
Right.
Never. It was always above my head, and I never asked why. Like, like I would get into a writing session with Vince, and Vince would say something to me of like, Vince, maybe we should start thinking of writing so and so out. I never asked why, because I knew it was business, and that was none of my business. So a lot of times when you see stuff like that, it was business. Whether, who knows? And I'm not saying this about Dell at all, but it could be the failing of a drug test. It could be contract negotiations. They're asking for more money. It could be so many things. But like I said, Joe, every time that happened, I would never ask why. I would just say, okay, and write the person out.
Yeah. Yeah. Clearly there had been plans to obviously do something with him. His action figure just came out, and then all of a sudden he's gone. So I always wondered about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you had to pick top three personal favorite matches of all time.
Oh, wow. Matches. That's tough. Definitely Savage Steamboat, without a shadow of a doubt. Matches. Wow. I'm not a match guy, man. I'm trying to think of what really, oh my God, I'll tell you, it's something I'll never forget. Bro, when I was a kid, I was probably about somewhere between 13 to 15. So we're probably talking about 19, say 75-ish for argument's sake. I remember going down to Florida and my cousin bringing me to a wrestling show. I'll never forget, in Florida. Now, keep in mind, I was a fan of the WWF, but this is like a whole different world down there in Florida. I will never forget this, bro. Dusty against King Curtis.
Oh, yeah.
I had never seen so much blood in a match in my life. And I vividly remember that because, the WWF under Vince Sr. you never saw violence like that. I mean, this was violence. Another one I always remember that is a fond memory. I have more fond memories of prior to me being in the business. It was very traumatizing to me when Spiros Arion turned on Chief Jay Strong, bro, and took that traditional headdress and was shoving the feathers down Chief's. Right. As a kid, man, I was traumatized. That's what's missing for me today. The moments. You remember the moment. Bro, the biggest moment in the history of me watching wrestling didn't even involve a word. That's how impactful stuff like this used to be. Bro, Andre ripping that chain off of Hogan's neck. That was the most impactful thing I've ever seen take place on a wrestling show before or since. That one little thing when he ripped that cross and you were at home and you're like, holy shit. That's what I miss, bro. I just miss the big moments that you talk about for 10, 20, 30 years. We don't get those anymore, man. We just don't.
Was there a certain moment you think where the switch was flipped as far as not violence, but as far as more, intense action was taking place, whether it be with some of the chairs at ringside or something? Because I remember watching an episode of Superstars, and Ludwig Borga hit Tatanka with a chair in the back, and they had to blur it out. And that was just a chair shot to the back, and then all of a sudden they're doing barbed wire matches. So
yeah, he was a great heel, by the way, man. Yeah. Ludwig Borga was a great heel. I don't know, man. Obviously, like, Mick coming onto the scene, I think had a lot, to do with that. But like you said, I mean, they were doing that way before Mick. but I don't really remember like when it started being more chairs and more tables and more stuff like that. But like I said, Mick was doing stuff in Japan when Mick did that thing with Eddie Graham. Remember they had the three, not Eddie Graham. Who do you have the three matches with in that one night? It wasn't Eddie Graham. It was who did Medusa used to be married to?
Oh, uh, Eddie Gilbert.
Yeah, yes. Hot Stuff, Eddie Gilbert, and Mick. They had these three gimmick matches in one night on the indie scene. And I remember seeing that, bro, probably early 90s, maybe 1990 or so. And it was freaking violent. And it just kind of, and obviously ECW. That I would say that was it. If we really had to put our finger on something, I would say it was really ECW.
Just to kind of keep up with the competition.
Yeah.
So obviously Mick Foley's probably at the top of your list, I would imagine. But during your time there in the WWF, who would you say was the most giving other than Mick Foley as far as pouring it, their heart and soul into the business?
God, bro, so many people. Man, I would say, bro, because I had the opportunity of seeing this up close. But I remember when I was writing, and even before I was writing, Taker was always the main event. And even on television, if he wasn't the main event, he was the dark match. And I always remember, obviously you watch Taker in those matches when he was in his prime and whatnot, and the things that he did. What people did not see was, bro, I still make it a habit to this day. When I leave the arena, I go around to every one of the boys and I shake their hand and I thank them. Without that work in the ring, I don't have a job. It's that simple. So I'm always the last one there and I'm always thanking for everybody. So Taker would be last and I'd always have to go looking for Taker. And the reason being is he would be off in a place that was very, very hard to find him. And I wouldn't call him a trainer. I don't know what I would call him, but we had a guy by the name of Francois. And Francois would always put these guys back together. And I can't tell you how many times after a match, a 5-star match, Taker is laid out on the floor in excruciating pain right after the match, and Francois put him back together. And I would remember watching this from afar, and I'd be like, how in God's name did he just do that out there? How was that? You seeing the pain he was in? It was back pain. It was always back pain. And seeing that, I was like, you would have never known watching any of his matches that he was in that kind of pain. And that to me is something I'll always remember, man.
Let's talk about character development. Being a lifelong WWF fan, wrestling fan in general, you used to have the event center hosted by Sean Mooney or Gene Okerlund, whoever's there, welcome to the event center. And they'd go over what the big storylines were that week or whatever it may be. But they would take that moment or those moments out of the show to take you to that segment and kind of get you caught up or, really pump up something coming up. And then beyond that, during the matches themselves, you would often have, almost every match would have a pop-up interview. Little interview would pop up in the corner of the screen and they're cutting a promo. They're talking about their opponent or they're talking about who's in the ring. And it was just a great way to develop the characters. You're hearing from them. You're seeing how they feel. You're seeing how they talk. And, you have all these opportunities. Obviously Todd Pettengill would do the pay-per-view reports for weeks, every episode. All right, let's go take you to the Royal Rumble report. Todd Pettengill will give you a couple names of who's in it and just get people really hyped up. None of that happens anymore. And I feel like character development, pay-per-view hype, all of that seems to be lost in the mix. And now, and I'm still a fan and I watch it to this day, but I just feel like I miss all of that. And what is your take on those things going away? And that might have something to do with them not having anything for half the roster one week because nobody knows who they are. Nobody knows
Yeah.
character.
I got to tell you something though, Joe. I am, believe it or not, and you know I come from the school you're talking about. But I'm sorry, bro. Unless you're a Lou Albano, unless you're a Jimmy Valiant, unless you're a Grand Wizard, unless you're a Bobby Heenan, unless you're a Randy Savage, unless you're in that top 10%, those interviews that you're talking about, the guy there with the stick, or in this case, WWE in the stick, all they're going to do is tell you they're going to beat their opponent. And we already know that. So to me, that because you don't have the Grand Wizard of Wrestling and you don't have Freddie Blassie, you don't have these larger than life characters, because they don't exist, I feel those stand-up mic things are a complete waste of time. What you got to do is you got to get them in vignettes. You got to get them in scenes that are building to that story. And I mean, if you watch JCW, my God, bro, I get heat because there's so many pre-tapes. The heat I get is from the crew because Vince, how are we going to do these? And I'm like, I don't know, but we're going to do them. And at the end of every show, they're all done. But that's what I believe in. I believe in those vignettes between matches that are telling stories. That's what's really going to get the character over, other than them just standing there and saying, I mean, my God, here's a perfect example, Joe. Gunther beats Cena. He's cut the same promo the last 3 weeks. Well, okay, we've heard it. You've done. It's the same exact thing 3 weeks in a row. To me, that's just a total waste of airtime. And that is, I mean, I like the guy. I'm a fan of Gunther. Gunther doesn't write the show. They're giving him this material. But when you watch the last 3 weeks, have they grown that character at all after the win of Cena? Absolutely not.
No.
He goes out there, he cuts the same promo every time. So that's I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of wrestlers stating the obvious. I'm not a fan of that. But you got to get them in those vignette scenes in the back. That's where the character is really going to come out.
And let's talk about tag team wrestling. While you were there with World Wrestling Federation, during your time specifically, you had the Godwins there, you had the Headbangers, the New Rockers, Doug Furnace and Philip LaFawn, the New Blackjacks, the Legion of Doom, the Smoking Guns, Owen Hart and the British Bulldog. There was so much to choose from, and they weren't just people thrown together. They were tag teams. I feel like that's a lost art. Now you get a couple thrown together. It's rare that you have an actual tag team. We do have the Motor City Machine Guns. There are a couple. But what do you think has happened to tag team wrestling? Because I thought it was so important for the business and such a big part of the history.
I agree with you 1,000%. And you had, like you said, man, you had teams. So you knew these teams knew each other inside and out. The Hart Foundation, the British Bulldogs. I mean, you had legit teams. And let's think about this for a second. With tag team wrestling comes a lot of psychology. A lot. We get heat on the one guy. We keep him from tagging his partner in. We're reaching over the ropes. We get so close. We pull him away. There's a strategy. There's a psychology to that. Well, that the business has shifted from psychology to moves. And there doesn't need to be any psychology behind these moves whatsoever. Zero. So if psychology was such a big part of tag team wrestling, and psychology is not a big part of the business today, I think that explains for a lot of the demise of tag team wrestling. I really, really do.
Now, magazine covers, obviously we talked on the first episode how you made that, famous Stone Cold magazine cover. And unfortunately, what you wanted to put for print on there, they didn't really go with. But when it comes to magazine covers, while you were with the magazine, what was your favorite if you had to choose one?
Wow, that's a great question. Because I always used to pick the cover, and like I said, Vince had to prove it, but I would always pick the cover. Oh, I'll tell you what it was. I loved. And again, this is all based on creative. I love when for a short time we married Mankind and Goldust. And Mick was referring to Dustin as mommy. And that was a cover of the magazine. And I'll tell you one too, man. I swear to God, Joe, one thing I used to do was every magazine cover, I would have the talent who was on the magazine cover sign it for me. And, I had everyone. And since then, I've given them all away. Oh my God, why am I drawing a blank now? Bro, who's the rock and roll TNA, the Rock and Roll Connection? He had his legs amputated, then he passed away. Who am I thinking of? Oh God, why am I drawing a blank? Remember they were with oh my God, why am I drawing a blank? I can't believe it. Anyway, we got to look it up. Look, can you look it up for me? Why am I drawing a blank? I loved them, and I'm just drawing a blank because I'm 65 years old. They did the rock and roll connection or something with Chrissy, the redhead. Why am I drawing a blank?
Christy Hemme?
Yes, they did. They did the gimmick with her, and it was Lance, the big Lance, who's Lance Archer, and Jimmy Rave. Thank you. Okay.
Oh, Jimmy Rave. Yes.
I love Jimmy Rave. I was a huge fan of Jimmy Rave. But here's my point. I had wound up giving them all away, every single cover. I had 2 left. One was the only time Owen was featured on the cover, and it was Owen and Neidhart. And I got Owen to sign that for me. And bro, him being on the cover was such a big deal for him. Like it was like he had made it. He was on the cover of the W. So that one was special to me. But bro, there was one, and this was the I held on to the Owen one and this one, but I kind of raffled this off when Jimmy Rave needed some money to, because of the legs and everything. And I sent them all the money I got for the magazine cover. But on the Raw magazine, on the cover, it was during the Heart Foundation. It was when Brett was in a wheelchair. And it was Brett, Owen, Pillman, Davey, and Neidhart. I remember I got all of them to sign it. And the only one with us today is Brett. And Jimmy was really in need of funds because he had to get a lot of work done. And I wound up selling that and sending him the money. But oh my God, that was such an iconic cover. When you look at those guys, Pillman was on there, yeah. and there's one left standing today, man. It's so sad. What talent was in that picture?
Yeah. The Heart Foundation, 1997. I don't think you got any better than that as far as affection, and it was just so much talent.
And that's why, I get so I get so pissed off when you always hear Brett couldn't cut a promo. Did anybody watch that? Brett was brilliant. He was absolutely brilliant. I think people say that because he was so good in the ring. But when you go back and you look at that Canada versus USA and the promos Brett cut, oh my God, some of the greatest promos in the last 30 years.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
Any personal memories of Paul Bearer? Percy Pringle?
Oh God, bro, man, I take this personally. I swear to God, I take this personally. When they talk about the best promos in the history of wrestling, how is he not in the conversation? Bro, I swear to you, Joe, and I'm going to say this from I probably started watching wrestling, I'll say when I was 12. I'm going to be 65. That's over 50 years. Bro, I don't think anybody comes close. The greatest storyteller in the history of wrestling. People have to understand, The Undertaker did not talk much. Kane didn't talk. Paul Bearer, William Moody, Percy Pringle had to go out and tell those stories. Yeah. And during the Attitude Era, oh my God, bro. And I say it to this day, the greatest storytelling of all time. And like I said, how he's not in the discussion, I don't know, maybe people look at him as gimmicky. He was Paul Bearer with the makeup and the urn. I don't know what they're looking at, but when you really talk about storytelling, nobody was better than this guy. Nobody.
Right. And from a manager standpoint, I honestly don't think there have been so many good ones, obviously in the 80s as well, but I don't know if anybody did it better than Paul, because he was just in full character. He brought it to another level.
Another level. And this isn't the day of you give him a promo and you got to hit every word. He would get to me, Vinny Rue. Always used to call me Vinny Rue. Vinny Rue, what do you need? What do you need? Paul, you got to get ABC across. That's it. Go out there, do your thing. You just got to make sure you get these points across. That was it. End of conversation. And then he would go out and tell such a story. Oh my God, bro. He is so sorely missed. That art is so missed. That's why, bro, I'm not a big fan of Heyman, because I honestly feel like, bro, he cuts the same promo every time. Yeah. There's never a story. I'm the advocate, I'm the this, I'm the that. You look at guys like Paul Bearer, like these were storytellers, I mean, you can go back and, like I said, I always refer to them as the big three. Bro, I'm not lying to you, Joe. I can sit in front of this computer for 24 hours and watch Lou Albano promos for 24. And bro, no two are ever going to be the same. Right. No two. And I always refer to them as the big three. When you had Albano, Blassie, and the Wizard, it never got better than that. We'll never ever see anything close to that. Bro, I wish I had those three in JCW. If I had those three guys in JCW, forget about it, bro. Oh, they were brilliant. It's a lost art. I think the same goes with announcers too. Yeah. Because Joe, every 2 weeks on Russo's brand, I review the Attitude Era. Yeah. And as I'm reviewing the Attitude Era, bro, without JR and the King telling the stories, right, there would have been no Attitude Era. None. Zero. If they would have been sitting back just calling the matches like everybody does today, nothing would have got over. Nothing. Those guys were constantly telling the stories and reinforcing the stories. And I watched today and I'm in awe of these guys. And I know as the writer, if they did not tell these stories, it would have never gotten over. And that, I think that's another lost art with announcers.
Right. My first memory of Lou Albano, I remember him sitting on the couch of TNT Wrestling, and he's got his shirt unbuttoned. He lets out this big belch, and just seeing Vince's reaction and Alfred Hayes' reaction, tremendous.
Oh God. Somebody, I was talking about Sean Oliver at the beginning of this interview. He just sent me a reel of an hour long of Lou Albano interviews back to back and back. And he just sent it to me and he just said, enjoy. And I wrote back to him. I'm like, bro, this is Christmas morning for me, man. One of the greatest things, Joe, I swear to God, I bring this up all the time because you'll never see this in a million years. It's Madison Square Garden. Okay. And superstar Billy Graham is with the Wizard and they're wrestling Backlund. right? So Wizard goes down there with Billy Graham, and the referee, probably Dick Worley, okay, is throwing Wizard out, throwing him out, throwing him out, throwing him out, right? So now Wizard, think of the brilliance of this. Wizard goes over to Worley and whispers something in Worley's ear, okay? Worley then goes over to Fink and whisper something in Howard Finkel's ear, right? So Howard Finkel, you got the mic from the ceiling. Howard Finkel gets behind the mic and says, "Ladies and gentlemen, I've just been informed by referee Dick Worley that the Grand Wizard of Wrestling will be allowed to remain ringside," long pause, "if he behaves." And bro, Wizard throws his arms up in the air, and I watch this shit, and I'm like, what happened to this wonderful, wonderful stuff with these great freaking characters? Oh my God, they were so good at what they did, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And in closing, Vince, when it comes to fan interactions, any fan interactions stick out more than the other?
Bro, I swear to God, it's like, for all, the heat and stuff people say about me and this and that, bro, I have never had a negative face-to-face encounter ever. Nobody has ever come up to me and said anything negative to me, and it's always thanking me. And especially like the older I get, because now I'm getting my childhood, or I was 12 and it's like, holy shit. I mean, that means a lot to me when I have kids who are like 12, 13 during the Attitude Era, who are, 40-year-old men now saying, "Hey, bro, my childhood, I'll never forget this stuff." That's important to me because I didn't forget the stuff from my childhood. Like I talked to you about, Strongbow with the feathers. I never forgot that stuff. So when fans say that to me, man, that to me, I all I tried to do was, it was a different time, but let's face it, man, my teacher was Vince McMahon Sr. That's what I watch. George the Animal Steel and Bruno. Like, that's what I watch. And that's why a lot of people, it's like, I'm not a wrestling guy, I'm an entertainment guy. You could blame that on Vince Sr. Yeah. That's what I grew up on. So I literally took that into, 2000, but it was Vince Sr. So when people can tell me they have fond memories of it as kids, that means the world to me, man.
Yeah. And, in closing, basically a quick story, Faneuil Hall, Boston, Massachusetts, it's WrestleMania 14 weekend, and it's the DX public workout. So I'm there as a young fan, and I've got a seat right on the guardrail where they're, the aisleway there. So I'm there early. I'm ready to go. I don't know what's going to happen. And they ended up just doing a couple matches. It was Los Boricuas and Headbangers, and I think Taka Michinoku and Scott Taylor. They had the big Tyson moment in the ring with DX, and all the news stations were there. As an ambitious kid, I decide now is the perfect time to step over the guardrail and walk backstage.
Yeah.
And so I don't know why I did this. It's not something I would normally do. I just, one moment I'm in the crowd, next moment I'm on the other side. So I just start walking backstage. Doc Hendricks is walking beside me because he happens to be on his way back there. He just looks over, says hello, and doesn't say a word to me. So we walk back there together. So maybe it looks like I'm with somebody. I'm supposed to be back there. I have no idea. First person I see, Vic Venom.
No way.
Yeah, Vince McMahon is on his headset watching a little monitor in the corner on the left. And when I walk in, you're right there. And Michael Cole and Doc Hendricks are there in their tuxes. And there were just a couple guys back there, the Headbangers, Sergeant Slaughter, and the Boricuas. So I'm getting these autographs and, end up meeting everybody. And I got your autograph. I still have the magazine to this day, signed by, all these guys, including the rare Vic Venom autograph. You don't see that,
Yeah.
And as I'm exiting that room, Bob Collins is there. And I go up to Bob and I ask him for an autograph. And he says, "Oh, you don't want my autograph." And, that went on for a good minute or so
Yeah.
until he realized I actually did know who he was, and I
Yeah.
appreciated. And he signed it for me, so I still have that in the magazine to this day as well. Just a great memory as a.
And Tony Greer didn't wind up kicking you out of there.
You know who kicked me out was Briscoe and Patterson.
Oh wow, that's royalty, bro. Because it's usually Tony Greer. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, the moment they saw me, and I was in there. It all happened within maybe 4 minutes, 5 minutes.
Yeah,
And I'm getting signature after signature, and they saw me and they said, "Time to go." Okay,
bro. You want to hear something funny?
But it was a good memory, though.
Bro, I swear to God, bro, something along those lines of. So, bro, I get my foot in the door with the WWE as a freelance writer. Okay, I was writing maybe 1 or 2 stories a month. I'll never forget they were giving me $150 a story. That's what they were paying me, right? The editor was Ed Raschuti. So Ed Raschuti assigns me for the first time to go to one of the buildings to interview Shawn Michaels. Okay. Bro, I'm in my 30s. I'm literally in my 30s. And I will never forget this, Joe, as long as I live. I'm in my 30s. Obviously, I know what this is. I'm working for the company now, for crying out loud. I go in the back and I see the heels and the baby faces playing cards together. And bro, there was that moment of, wait a minute, like I was in my 30s. But when I actually saw that, I'm like, holy shit! It was really real. And Tony Greer jacked me up. What are you doing here? Who are you? I'm like, bro, I'm with the magazine. But yeah, I remember that vividly, man. Vividly. Yeah.
That's great. Well, Vince, thank you so much. Russo'sBrand.com. Thank you for being here once again. And why don't you just quickly tell the fans all your socials, where they can find you, your podcasts?
Yeah, guys, really, russosbrand.com. We do so many podcasts, and I do so many. Al Snow, Stevie Richards, Stevie Ray, EC3, so many people on the podcast. And also Lunacy, guys, please, if you miss the Attitude Era, if you miss characters, every Thursday night, 7:00 on YouTube is a brand new episode, 7:00 Eastern, JCW Lunacy. Just check it out.
Awesome. For Vince Russo, I'm Joseph Bruen. This has been the All Access Entertainment Podcast, Part 2. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave your comments. We'd love to hear from you, the fans. And we'll see you all next time.